We are thrilled to have you all with us today for the Passport to Healthy Living, Healthy Choices When Dining Out program, part of our Passport program. And it's just a thrill to have you here every third Wednesday at 3 p.m. And we're going to get started here today with a poll. We've got a question we want to ask you about your dining out preferences right now. Tell us how many times you've been dining out in the past month, dined out or ordered takeout food, let's say, in the past month. You give us an idea there, and I think it'll be interesting to see where everyone's at on that. And for those of you who are watching this on YouTube later or live right now, you're not going to see the poll, but it's just for those who are watching live on Zoom. So anyway, we're thrilled to have you here. And for more than 60 years, AARP has been working to make life better for those of us 50 plus, and really for everyone to live our best lives as we age. And we do that work right here in North Dakota with programs like this. So thank you for joining us today. We are pleased to provide this education, and we are just thrilled to have Wendy helping us out as a greeter today. And I know she mentioned that if you are interested in being a volunteer or helping us out in any way, just shoot us an email, aarpnd@aarp.org is an email that you could send it to, or you can contact any one of us by putting something in the Q&A too, would be very easy. So we got one more quick poll here. We're going to ask about what type of restaurant you like. This is going to help us set the stage and give Rachel a better picture of what kinds of things you all like, and we'll reveal the results after a bit here. But tell us what kind of restaurant is your favorite if you are going to go out to eat or order takeout from somewhere. Yeah, those all kind of look really good. I know one or two of my favorites there, but I'll let you know. But thanks to Lyle Halverson for his work behind the scenes on the polls, and to all of the folks who are helping us out behind the scenes. But now let's invite Rachel to join us here. And Rachel, put your camera on, and I'm eager to learn more about making healthy choices when I do look at a menu. It doesn't happen too often, sometimes for a little takeout or whatever, but Rachel is with us today. Rachel Iverson is a registered dietitian with Sanford Health, and she's also a senior programs wellness specialist for that organization. So Rachel, it's great to work with you again. Thank you so much. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I like to always start off by explaining what a dietitian is, because I think sometimes it's confusing. But a dietitian is a person who's gone to school for an undergrad and a master's degree, passed a national registration exam, and has to do continuing education and be licensed with the state and nationally. So a lot of people think dietitians are the food police, but I'm more of like, we're like food therapists. We ask you, like, how did you feel eating that? Did it make you feel good? Our job is not to tell you, no, you can't eat that, no, you can't eat that, or give you really strict guidelines. It's to figure out how to make food work with you. So I became a dietitian because I love food, for reference. So we'll have a pretty good conversation here today, I think.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great. Love to hear more. So, but before we move on, let's see the results of those polls. The first one, okay, how many times have you dined at a restaurant or ordered out? 75% of you, 1 to 5 times. 25% of you, 6 to 10 times. And those are the two answers that we've received. So thank you for sharing that. We can jump over to the next time. What type of restaurant do these people like here? Let's see. Italian, Mexican is pretty popular, Chinese, and then steakhouse too. So awesome, very good. Okay, well, that's interesting. I know Mexican and Chinese are both kind of yummy ones. So so that'll like kind of give you an idea of where we're at here with some folks, Rachel. So I'm going to let you take it away and share your screen and go on with your program anytime you're ready here. We're pleased to hear more about some ideas. So I'll pop in later, but I'm going to get out of the picture for now. So take it away, Rachel. Thank you.
No worries. So today we're just going to talk about making some healthy choices when you're eating out. So really, the biggest thing is to, keep your guidelines simple. If we're following some really complex nutrition program, and it's going to be very difficult for us to enjoy our time eating out, and enjoy that time with our family and friends when we want to be social, we want to support local business, all those good things. So I know you've probably seen this, the My Plate, before. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but basically, while national guidelines for nutrition might not be the most exciting, they are the most comprehensive for preventing nutrition deficiency and preventing disease. So when we think about eating out, we want to really bring it back to the basics. What are we trying to accomplish with our nutrition goals? So what I really want you to think about is this plate right here. So what food groups do I have? Now, all these food groups do different things for our body, and all of us provide different satiety levels for us. So they do different things, and they give us a certain amount of fullness for longer or shorter amounts of time. So the best thing we can do is have a variety of foods. I, as much as the next person will enjoy an all-you-can-eat wings, or like Red Lobster's endless shrimp or something like that, but the key here is not to eat just one thing, but to have a variety. If we have a variety of food groups, we're always going to have a higher nutrient content. We're going to get a more well-rounded and well-balanced diet. So here we can see the food groups are protein, grains, fruit, vegetables, and dairy. Some people throw in healthy fats as a food group because we don't talk about it too much. But a lot of things in restaurants are cooked in fat. So we'll talk about that a little bit. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through food group by food group, talk about the benefits, talk about how you want to choose this in the restaurant. And then at the end, we're going to go through my overall tips for dining out. So the first one we have here is our protein. So I put protein first because a lot of times protein is kind of the deciding factor for the plate. In the Midwest, we don't have a ton of vegetarians. And even when we do, protein is still a big factor. Protein is generally the highest plate cost food item. So when we're thinking about choosing protein, we have to keep a couple factors in mind. If we're one of the people who are eating out more frequently, we may want our restaurant meals to align with our other nutrition goals. If it's once in a while, then you go ahead and order whatever sounds good to you. But again, if you're eating out more frequently, then this is something you're going to want to keep in mind pretty steadily. So especially as we age, it's more difficult for our bodies to break down proteins due to lower stomach acid and bile. So we don't break it down quite as well. We don't denature it in the stomach, shall we say. So we're not breaking the molecules down as easily. And we don't absorb it as well through our intestinal wall. And so we tend to get a little bit less protein. But as we age, protein is a really important nutrient because it helps us retain our muscle tissue. Now, especially if we're at breakfast, if we're eating out at other times of the day, the biggest thing is to keep protein intake even throughout the day. A lot of times we might have like a pastry and a coffee at breakfast, maybe lunch is a salad or a soup, and that evening meal is our meat and potatoes meal. Well, if we put all our protein at the end of the day, we're not going to absorb all of it. Well, we will absorb a lot of it, but when we absorb it, it won't all be used for protein function. So protein is a builder. It's not necessarily a feeder. So protein builds your muscle tissue, it builds your skin tissue, it builds cells. It is the structural component. It's not the gas for the engine, it's the engine parts. So we want to keep that really evenly throughout the day. So if you're at breakfast, you want to make sure you're getting something with a little bit of protein, whether that's a Greek yogurt, it's some eggs somewhere out, it's a piece of turkey or deer sausage or regular sausage. That's kind of how we want to think, because we want to really focus on that muscle retention and what the protein is doing for us. Not only that, but protein is very important for immune function. So protein is necessary to create structure of immune cells. So we think antibodies, we think macrophages, we think white blood cells. We need protein to support that. Whenever I have an individual come into the hospital with a pretty severe chronic illness or an injury, like a car accident, a severe injury situation, we almost always increase our protein by 1.5 to 2%, just because it's very vital for rebuilding tissues and creating those immune functions. Now, this is kind of interesting too. If you know it's going to be a long time before your next meal, that might be a good time to bump up protein, because protein has what we call the highest satiety value. And this means when protein hits the stomach, it keeps you full longer than any other nutrient. Your brain interacts protein as more filling than carbohydrates or fats. So I just find that really interesting. Even though fat takes the longest to break down, the protein keeps us full longer. So if I know my family's going to go out to brunch and then we're probably not going to eat again until that evening meal, that's where I would make sure a large portion of that plate is protein dense. Okay, so we're going to talk about choosing a protein at the restaurant. So a lot of us said that we really enjoy Mexican food and steakhouse. Well, let's start steakhouse. That's easy. A lot of steakhouses will have a chicken breast on menu, but let's be honest, if I'm going there, I'm going there to get steak. If we're eating out frequently, again, we want to choose maybe a leaner cut of steak. So anything that ends in round or loin is going to be one of the leaner cuts. So sirloin, tenderloin. We're probably not going to order a round steak. Maybe at a Mexican restaurant, we get round steak fajitas, but they might not put round steak in the menu. But what I want to think about is the lower fat content. Protein is only 4 calories per gram, whereas fat is 9 calories per gram. So the deal here is if I can choose a steak with a lower fat content, a little less marbling, so I'm not picking the ribeye, I'm picking the filet mignon or the sirloin, or even the New York strip is going to be a little bit leaner than a ribeye. Then what I know is I'm getting a little less calories because of the animal source protein, which is also can contribute to high cholesterol. Now, the other things you can choose protein-wise, eggs at breakfast, beans at a Mexican restaurant. I would definitely get like flank steak or sirloin fajitas or chicken fajitas at a Mexican place. You're getting a very lean source of protein when you choose those options. And again, if it's going to be a long time, maybe you also get beans on the side, beans and rice, something like that to help bump up that protein intake for yourself. Now, when we think about seafood, we think, shrimp, crab, salmon, oysters. I like mussels a lot. All those are very pure sources of protein, but the thing we need to remember with those is they're going to be higher sodium because they grow up in a high sodium environment, the ocean, right? And then they're often treated with a nitrate solution when frozen, unless we're getting fresh caught seafood, which in the landlocked North Dakota, we might not be getting, which makes me sad, but it's true. So you got to watch sodium content on some of those protein options. So the key with your protein choices are make sure it's probably a 3 to 4 ounce portion. So the size of your palm, maybe a tiny bit bigger or smaller. There's some wiggle room there. Choose leaner when possible, but also if you're going out once in a while and you love a good ribeye with a little bit of garlic butter on it, then now's the time to order it. We have to enjoy those things every now and then. Okay, so let's talk grains. On the side of that steak, we might have some rice. We might have some rice pilaf. We might have some barley in a soup we order, etc. Maybe there's some lentils in something. So the benefits of grains are they provide fiber. So if I'm at like a hotel breakfast and they have an oatmeal as an option, I'm almost always going to choose that because it's going to be a high fiber choice. Fiber also keeps me full longer. And if you're eating out a lot, maybe you're on vacation, it's important to really focus on getting high fiber foods because if you're eating a little bit differently than normally at every meal, you're going to have some intestinal issues. Fiber will definitely help with that. So we like to bulk up the fiber, especially on vacation when possible, so that we don't spend our time in the restroom uncomfortable, then out on the beach. Not the funnest thing to talk about, but it's important. Fiber provides nice, even energy intake or carbohydrates, especially when they are paired with a protein source. And fiber works to lower cholesterol in the body. So when I eat oatmeal, when I eat brown rice, what I'm doing is I'm actually lowering my LDL cholesterol a little bit. You'll see the heart healthy check mark on Cheerios and other cereals. And that's because fiber binds with bile, which is made out of cholesterol in the intestinal tract, so you can't reabsorb it. So your body has to pull cholesterol out of the bloodstream in order to make more bile. So basically, you have this looping system in your GI tract where cholesterol is pulled from the bloodstream, it's stored in the gallbladder as bile, it's secreted into the stomach when you have a meal, and then you reabsorb it towards the end of the small intestine. And grains will interrupt that process and force your body to use its own cholesterol to create its own bile. So you'll lower your cholesterol by doing that. So when you can choose whole grains, whether you're at Subway choosing whole grain bread, or you're at a Mexican place choosing whole grain tortillas, or you're getting brown rice somewhere else or a whole wheat pasta, although I would probably not get like an angel hair whole wheat because that tends to get a little bit drier, but maybe like a penne would be fine. Those are good choices to help with some overall health goals, to keep you full, to keep your intestinal tract working, to provide nice even energy intake, lower cholesterol. So again, variety of food groups, really important on your plate. And if your restaurant is serving popcorn ahead of time, the popcorn is often very salty. So if you're on a sodium restriction, you want to watch that. But popcorn is a whole grain. And I love to remember that because popcorn is a great snack, whether you're out at the movies or they're served at like a Ground Round or another restaurant. It's a whole grain. And it's a really good way to start your meal or finish it or just have as a snack. So we're choosing whole grains, and we want to, again, hope for that even intake throughout the day, because at each meal, your body's going to secrete some of that bile, and we want to disrupt that cholesterol reuptake at every single meal. So the more evenly we can choose grains throughout our day, we can have half a whole wheat bagel at breakfast. We can have a little bit of rice pilaf with our lunch and a whole wheat dinner roll at the evening meal. We're doing pretty well there. Okay, produce. Produce is the best thing to get when you're out because produce is very low calorie. If you're watching your calories, produce is a great option, but that's not the only real benefit. Low calories isn't necessarily a good thing in itself, but veggies also provide fiber. They provide vitamins and minerals important for immune function, for skin health, for cell turnover, for all kinds of things, for eye health, etc. They provide a good amount of hydration. 12 to 20% of your daily hydration needs generally come from your food. So produce is up to 96% water. So that's a really good option, especially if you're in a hot climate or it's 105 out, like it's been almost every day this summer. Produce can get you a lot of fluid and hydration without feeling like you're chugging your water. What that does is when you're well hydrated, you sweat easier, you're less likely to experience heat exhaustion, but also you produce more synovial fluid, so your joints are a little bit healthier. And veggies and fruits have the added benefit of antioxidant content, meaning they are cancer preventers. So while regular recommendations are 5 servings a day, the American Cancer Society recommends 9 a day. And a cup of raw veggies or a half cup of cooked veggies is 1 serving. So 2 to 3 servings of veggies a day, and with fruit, you want to hit 5 total. So when we're picking veggies, we can think at the restaurant, starchy or non-starchy. We can think juice versus whole or prepared versus whole. So what I mean here is a serving of a Caesar salad is going to be a little bit lower in carbohydrate than choosing a sweet potato as your side. The sweet potato is going to be a starchy choice, so it's going to bump up the carbohydrate content of your meal. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. We love to demonize carbs in this day and age. Sweet potatoes are going to have a ton of nutrients. And here's the difference too. If I have the choice between a mashed potato and a baked potato, I'm going to choose a baked potato, because when we create a mashed potato, we want it to be really good and really creamy. So we add butter, we add cream, we add maybe some parsley, I don't know, some salt and pepper, maybe a little bit of garlic that we roasted. Anyway, sounds good, right? But we remove the skins often when we make mashed potatoes. Some places don't, but most places do. The skin is where the fiber of the potato lives, most of the fiber is. So when I can choose a whole potato, generally they're those big Idaho potatoes, I'll cut it in half. I'll eat half the potato, or if I'm really hungry, I'll eat the whole thing. It depends on. And I will eat the skin as well, because that skin is high fiber, high nutrient density. So when I can choose a whole vegetable, like a sauteed cauliflower or something like that, I'm going to do a little bit better than when I get a puree or a mash. So I want to choose things like that. Now, you can ask your restaurant if it's canned, fresh, or frozen. Surprisingly, a lot of restaurants use canned veggies when it comes to like lentils and things, because they don't have the prep time for the beans. So that might be a question you ask, because that'll adjust the sodium content. Now, if you're going to brunch, you're probably not going to get a whole tomato rather than a Bloody Mary. And just know that the more variety and colors of vegetables, the better off you are. So considerations with veggies: as many on the plate as possible, a variety of colors, choose whole when possible, and maybe just stay away from canned a little bit. Shoot for that frozen, fresh, the steamed, the grilled, etc. Okay, and fruit. Now, this is less frequent when we eat out, but if you get like a fruit salsa, there's often fruit in our desserts. If you can choose a fruit-based dessert, that's going to be a better choice for you. So if I get like an apple crisp with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, I'm going to be very hungry after this, you guys. It's going to be a better, more nutrient-dense choice for me than a chocolate lava cake. Now, if I'm feeling the chocolate lava cake, that's going to go well for me. I'm going to order it. But in general, if I can order an apple crisp, I'm going to get some fiber. I'm going to get some antioxidant benefits, so that little bit of cancer prevention benefit. And a fruit's a fruit, even if it's baked into a pie. So when possible, I do want you to choose fruit at a restaurant as well. And there are definitely like grilled plantain dishes, maybe more common at a Mexican or Hawaiian restaurant. Other grilled pineapple with kebabs. You know, some people put pineapple on pizza. We don't need to talk to or about those people, but that happens. And you're still getting the benefits of that, as well as the fiber that keeps you full longer. So the only thing when we're thinking about fruit is how is it prepared? Am I getting a whole fruit, or am I getting, we don't usually have mashes or anything. So really, the only thing I really want to touch on here is that last bullet is smoothies. Look at the sugar content of your smoothies. If they provide a nutrition label, that's a good thing to check, because some places will add in honey or even just straight up sugar to make the taste sweeter. And you can ask for that to be left out. Fruit is generally pretty sweet on its own, unless you get like a sour grape, which I did have one today. But that can kind of be something that hides. And you want to make sure when you're getting a smoothie that the place is using a whole fruit, again, that hopefully they're not taking too much of the skin off, things like that. Okay, and then dairy. Dairy provides calcium, it provides vitamin D. It's essential for bone health, for nerve function. Calcium is one of the minerals that helps regulate our synapses one to the other. Depending on the type of dairy, it can provide carbohydrate, protein, and fat. So again, if I'm at that hotel breakfast and they have a yogurt station, I'm often picking a yogurt for some probiotic content to help my GI tract move a little bit smoother. And people who eat actually a lot of dairy, specifically yogurt and kefir, so fermented dairy products, they actually have lower risks of cancer, even when they have a little bit higher alcohol or red meat intake. So I love to highlight that as well, is because yogurt and probiotics are very important to our overall health, and it's maybe something that we don't focus on when we're eating out. It is okay. I will often order a glass of milk with breakfast. People look at me like I'm a weirdo sometimes. That's okay, because getting that calcium, again, evenly throughout the day is really important to your absorption rate and how your body is using it. So again, if there's a yogurt parfait option, that's great. But I also want to hit on, there are things called mozzarella sticks. That's a serving of dairy. Now, that will be higher fat. You will have a lot higher calorie content from that. So if I'm really feeling like I need some mozzarella sticks in my life, I will order that with a nice big grilled chicken salad. We need to think about balancing. If we're ordering an app and a meal, one is going to be a little bit more calorie heavy than the other. If we do 2 calorie heavy in a row, it's going to be a little rough on our system and we may overeat. So when we're choosing dairy, we want to think low fat most of the time. But if you're going out for a chocolate shake, I'm not going to say get low fat shakes. Get a nice hot fudge chocolate shake. That kind is my favorite. And you want to think if they have a yogurt parfait option, if there's a little bit of shredded cheese or something else on there, if you can use cottage cheese at the salad bar. I love to use cottage cheese at like Ruby Tuesdays as my dressing for my little salad. However, cottage cheese again has a high sodium content, which generally you will have a higher sodium meal when eating out. Chefs love salt. We know why. Tastes good. But cottage cheese about 500 milligrams per half cup. So be a little bit cautious there if you're on a sodium restriction. But dairy is a great thing to put on your plate if you're at a salad bar or a barbecue or like a graduation party or something. Those little cheese cubes and things, they will keep you full because they're high protein, moderate fat, and cheese is going to be low to no carbohydrate, but milk and cottage cheese and yogurt will have some carbohydrates. So that's going to be nice and even. So depending on what time of day you're eating, we're more likely to have fruit at breakfast rather than dinner and at our snacks. and we're less likely to have vegetables in the morning and protein in the morning. So you really want to kind of think about balancing that out depending on what time of day you're eating out. So think about having those 4 food groups to a meal. And then, remember our food groups were dairy, um, oh my gosh, dairy, grains, protein, fruits, and veggies. Again, dairy, grains, protein, fruit, veggie. If I aim to have 4 of those at a meal, I'm going to eat a lot more well-rounded while I'm on vacation, while I'm eating out that one time a month. Well, maybe that I don't want to be well-rounded, but if I'm eating out weekly or bi-weekly, I really do want to think about the diversity of the food on my plate and what I'm truly enjoying. Okay, if I'm going out for a snack, we're at a coffee shop, something like that. There are options here as well. So my favorite place in Bismarck is Brick Oven Bakery. Oh, it's so good. I love to go get a latte and a pastry. Now, if I get lower sugar or sugar-free in my latte, that's pretty good. And I can get skim or 2% milk. Now, if this is going to be my breakfast, I'll often choose 2% milk to keep myself full a little bit longer. But if it's kind of a snack, I'll probably get skim, just to cut down on the fat content and the calories. So if I think about that, it's basically like having a glass of milk with breakfast. And if you are not a breakfast person, I highly recommend having a 2% latte to get some protein in the morning, because that'll give you at least 8 grams, which is better than nothing. And plus, who doesn't like coffee? I'm just saying, maybe you're going to make fun of me for having stuff in my coffee, but that's okay. We can still be friends. So when I'm thinking about going out to Brick Oven Bakery, if it's morning and it's my breakfast, I'm going to get a skim milk latte. And then when I choose a pastry there, they have danishes with cheese, they have fruit danishes, they have other things like that that are all very good. But they also have egg and prosciutto danishes. So I know if I want 4 food groups or more, it might be nice to get the whole milk latte. So I'm getting dairy, the protein-based pastry. So I'm getting egg, I'm getting grain, I'm getting protein and grain. Or maybe I'm going with a friend, maybe we cut a protein one and a fruit one in half. So then I'm getting grain, I'm getting fruit, I'm getting protein, I'm getting dairy. So, really think about those variety of foods, especially when you're at a barbecue or a Super Bowl party or something. Can I get produce on my plate? Can I get whole grains here? If not, can I bring something to that venue? Because eating out just isn't always just at restaurants. Sometimes it's at other people's houses. And again, look for different textures, different flavors, and pick foods that you want to eat. We're going to talk through some of my top tips. So we're going to go through these a little bit. It's interesting when you look at restaurant menus, because they will often tell you very interesting stories about the foods you're eating. So because restaurants know that if they say succulent grilled chicken breast rather than chicken breast, you're going to pay more for it, you're going to feel more satisfied by it and enjoy the food more overall. So that's kind of interesting. They'll add a lot of fancy language to try and get you to order their top sellers or their highest profit items. So you want to be kind of aware. And what I like to do is I like to look at the menu before I'm going. I'm also anticipating what I'm going to have, because I like to look forward to food. So a lot of times I'll peruse the menu if I know where I'm going ahead of time. And that way, if I have a nutrition goal in mind, I can choose something that aligns with that goal. So I have the time to look through and find something that is not only satisfying to me, but is also really enjoyable. Now, interestingly enough, when we are able to choose that food ahead of time, we can pay attention to the food groups. We have a little more time. We don't feel as rushed, but also we can order first. Now, I have an interesting book here with me. It's called Mindless Eating. It's by Brian Wansink. He is a PhD. He is a professor at, I think he's at Cornell. And so he is a professor at the Cornell Food Lab, and they do all these different really interesting studies on how we behave in restaurants, how we behave when we're eating away from home. So what they find again is that menus with more interesting language, that helps you feel more satisfied by your meal. But also, if you order first, let's say I'm with a group, a larger group, maybe a family group for a birthday of 12 people. If I'm sitting at a Mexican restaurant and I am like, you know what, I think fajitas sound good. And then I hear somebody say seafood burrito. And then the next person says beef enchiladas. And then someone says chicken enchiladas. And then someone says chimichanga. And then someone says nachos or something. Nachos probably wouldn't be at a Mexican restaurant, but anyway. I'm sitting here thinking, wow, all that sounds so good. And I get something called fear of missing out. And this is a real phenomena psychologically. It has an impact on us. By the time they get to me, if I'm ordering last and I've heard 11 other menu options, I am feeling less secure and less interested in the choice I have made and wondering if I've picked the wrong thing because I'm going to be missing out on those other foods. Now, this is very interesting, but they've been able to prove this with quite a few studies in a row. And they've allowed us to see that when we order first, we fold our menu, we listen to everybody else. But when we pick first, we have that ability to be decisive. We actually enjoy our food more, and we rate the experience as more satisfactory. So another thing is not only is looking at the menu ahead of time to align yourself with your nutrition goals and maybe get through some of the flowery language that gets you to spend a little bit more money. But also you can order first and you can have that confident feeling in your choice, which again, if we're going to spend the money to eat out, I want to feel good about it. So when I'm looking at my proteins, it's good to choose baked or grilled over fried. Now, sometimes fried fish sticks or fish and chips or a chicken fried steak, sometimes that sounds really good and we order it. But most of the time, what happens is that breading on the outside of that food is going to really increase the fat content, specifically the saturated fat content. And that's going to have some harmful impacts on our health if we continue to choose that over long-term periods. So when possible, if we can get a grilled meal, we can get a baked meal, we can get a broiled meal, it's going to do a little bit better for our health when we're thinking about that. So those are going to be even sous vide. If you've never had sous vide, that's a really great cooking method. So for proteins, I'm going to look at choosing that. Well, the next tip is we talked about a variety of food groups, but if I can make half of my plate produce, that's going to be a really good thing for myself. So whether I get a side salad, or maybe I get a lot of produce in a soup, like a vegetable soup, or maybe I get like Mexican street corn on the side, or I have a side of beans and red beans and rice, something like that. The more produce I can get onto my plate, the better. And not only is produce lower calorie, but it's higher volume. So in order to get the same amount of calories, I have to eat a lot more. So if you're really craving something fried and you're looking at the menu and you see fried pickles, pickle spears, and you see mozzarella sticks, the pickle spears are going to be lower calorie simply because they're not filled with cheese. They have lower saturated fat content, and carbohydrate is 4 calories per gram, plus there's a lot of fiber in there, whereas saturated fat or any fat is 9 calories per gram. So if I choose fried pickle spears, I'm going to have a little bit less fat density in that first part of my meal, and I'm going to have a higher volume compared to calories. So if we can eat our veggies in the beginning of the meal, we also tend to fill up a little bit more volume of our stomach doing that. And that allows us to, enjoy those other foods, but not necessarily go overboard or eat to the point where we're overfull. Because a lot of the volume in my stomach is going to be low calorie, high nutrient density. So lots of vitamins and minerals content. So if I can make half my plate produce, that's going to go well. Now, my next tip is to eat that produce first. So different ways you can do this. Get your side salad out ahead of time. Get your squash soup out ahead of time. I know Butterhorn in Bismarck has an excellent squash soup. It is so good. And I think the Bistro has a really good one too. Anyway, you're not all in Bismarck, but that's delicious. So what I want to think about is, can I eat those veggies first? And even if maybe I really am feeling chicken Alfredo. Even if my chicken Alfredo doesn't come with a veggie option, I can either order a side or say, hey, would the chef be okay adding broccoli into my chicken Alfredo so I can have broccoli chicken Alfredo and get a little bit more produce in? So you can ask for slight modifications. A lot of times, even though we sometimes feel uncomfortable asking for things in restaurants, remember they're there to perform a service. No, be nice. Don't yell at your waiter or waitress or get snippy if they can't do it. But it's always okay to ask. So think about what you can add. Now, you see the next tip. If you're ordering it, if you're craving it, if you've been thinking about it for days, my goodness, just order it and don't worry about it. When we order things that we enjoy, we tend to have a much better experience that and so whether it's a healthy food or it's something a little less healthy, if I'm thinking about it all the time, that's what I want to order. Because interesting study that was done. Two different cohorts of people. So they took a study, they put people into two different groups. One group of people went into the food lab and they got a chocolate shake that had a skinny chocolate shake label. Okay. The other group went in later that day and they got a deluxe chocolate shake label. Now the shake was the same. The nutrition facts were on the outside of the shake. They could all see the shake was 120 calories. No, 320 calories and like 20 grams of fat and like probably 50 grams of carbohydrate, whatever. So it was the same shake. Later in the day, when they recorded their nutrition intake and they took pictures and weighed their food, the people who had the so-called skinny shake ate 20% more. So they were compensating for having a low calorie choice earlier. So this is kind of when I want to highlight this, is because even if we think we're making the healthy choice, if we personally feel deprived, it will impact how we eat food later. And we get in this kind of binge and restrict cycle where I'm like, okay, no, I shouldn't have that. I'm just going to order the salad with grilled chicken. I'm not going to get a burger today. When I go make dinner at home, I'm probably going to put 30% more spaghetti on my plate, and there's the same amount of calories right there. So if what I'm craving is a chocolate brownie blizzard from Dairy Queen, I should just get my butt there and eat it and then be done, because that's going to allow me to forget about it. It's going to give the cravings less power over me, because if I know I can have something, I'm less likely to binge on it. I'm just going to have it when I want it and be done when I'm finished, and I will make better choices later. Next tip is to order a water with every meal. So I don't care if you're ordering another drink too, always have a water. If you're going through a coffee shop or a drive-through and you get a pop, also get a water, or you get a coffee, get a water as well. Water is really great. We don't hydrate enough. And if you are ordering an alcoholic beverage, I'd like you to make sure your urine is very pale yellow or clear before you drink. That will ensure that you're well hydrated and able to handle that alcohol. So I've helped many a patient before a bachelorette party or a family reunion feel a lot better by making sure they just paid attention to the toilet when they peed. So pay attention to your urine color. If it's dark yellow, it's not a beer night. Order your water and move on. If your urine is very pale and you'd like a glass of Merlot with your steak, now's the time to order that. So again, but also order a water with it. Again, we want to stay balanced. And then if you can, box your entree up prior to eating. So this is a weird one. But if you're really like one who tends to overeat, or maybe your partner kind of is a really slow eater and you're a fast eater, this is a tip for you. I'm a fast eater. My fiance is a little bit slower. So this one helps me out sometimes, because let's say we go to Johnny Carino's. I loved the baked cheese tortellini, but if I'm like, okay, you know what? I feel pretty good. I feel full, and I move it to the side slightly and I sit there. It's still in my line of sight, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll eat one more tortellini. And you kind of pick at it and maybe even draw a line with your brain, like, okay, I'll eat to this point. And you keep kind of picking and picking. You eat more than you want to. So my tip is, especially if it's a meal like a pasta, ask for the to-go box right away, or ask them to put half the meal in the to-go box before they bring it out. That way your brain sees you're eating the full portion and you stop picking later. When it's in the box, it's a lot harder to open it up and eat a tortellini out of it than to grab one off the plate that's 6 inches from your hand. So that can be a really helpful tip as well. But remember, the biggest thing here, if you're craving it, order it. Look at your nutrition goals ahead of time, check out the menu, try to get a variety of food groups, and really enjoy what you're eating. And remember that part of the eating out experience is being with others and enjoying the time. And this does not have to be successful all the time or perfect all the time to be successful. You don't have to, if you overeat once, it's not the end of the world. Take away a little bit of the guilt and you'll find yourself noticing it's a little bit easier to make some of those healthy choices. So that is what I have for you guys today. I think we have another poll. So why don't we pull that?
Yeah, let's do that last poll. Okay, so this is when I eat out or order out, do I try something different every time? order the same thing. I have certain restaurants where I order the same thing.
You try
And
something and it's so good.
I know you just get stuck on stuff. So give you just another second here. And this is multiple choice, so you can answer more than one. If some of these things are, I like your tips about not being afraid to ask to put those veggies like in a pasta, for example. That was interesting. I thought that was really a good idea. And hey, I do have to take a little objection with you on the pineapple. I love pineapple on pizza.
I shouldn't even say that because I've never tried it. And I'm not a fan of people who are like, well, I don't like that, and then have never tried it. How do you know? And also
Yeah.
your taste buds change as you age. So like,
Right.
I hate olives. I hate them,
Really?
but I try them once a year just to make sure.
Oh gosh.
Okay,
Oh,
what
and
do we
here's
have
our
here?
poll results. Okay. So people are trying to find healthy options,
Mhm.
and I like the planning to take the leftovers home too, because I love leftovers. It's
Ugh,
just
my favorite.
items on the side. Awesome. So cool. Well, that was interesting to see some of those results. I do have a question for you, Rachel,
Yeah.
about how much protein a person should have in a day. And I think it might differ between men and women a little bit, but
Well,
can you tell us more?
a little, but not enough that makes a huge deal. If you want to calculate your protein needs, here's how you do it. Let's get our calculator out.
Oh,
So I personally weigh 180 pounds. So if I write 180 on my calculator, I'm going to divide by 2.2 to get kilograms. So
okay.
my body is 81 kilograms, right?
Okay.
I'm a very dense human. I am 81 kilograms. So if I'm not a very active person, then I can probably just eat 81 grams of protein, because it's generally 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram is the recommendation, especially as we're aging. Now, if I'm active, if I'm out gardening all the time, if I like to go for walks, if I work out regularly, if I'm just really active, I might want to multiply that by a little bit more. If I'm a strength trainer, I might want to multiply it by 1.5, which is me. So that's what I do. But if I'm just somebody who's pretty active, maybe I multiply by 1.2. And then, so for me, that would be 98 grams of protein a day. Now, if I divide that by 3 meals per day, that's 32 grams of protein at a meal. Most of us do not get close to 30 grams of protein at breakfast. It is hard because you think about an egg is like 6 grams. A glass of milk is 8 grams. And then maybe you do 2 eggs, there's like 12, and then you do 8, so that's 20. You still need another 10. And I don't have eggs every single morning. And then you want to worry about the saturated fat content. So there are a lot of things to consider when eating out and when trying to get enough protein throughout the day. Because again, the most important thing for muscle retention and health as we age is having it evenly morning, afternoon, evening.
Great, great. Well, that is it, and I know I've got some of these protein drinks that have like 30 grams in one, container, and they are really good. And it's amazing how you do feel more full when you get more protein. It
Yes.
really does help. So,
My favorite thing is Fairlife milk. It's
remember.
15 grams of protein per cup. So I like to make a latte out of that in the morning. And then there's half my protein right there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was just great. And thanks also to my colleagues, Lyle Halverson, Wendy Hogue, and Alexis Betts, who are behind the scenes and helping out and assisting in the background. So we really appreciate that. And we thank you all today for joining us for the Healthy Choices When Dining Out, part of the Passport to Healthy Living program for 2021.